From a young age, Bunny was obsessed with handsome men. Just a glimpse of a good-looking guy would send her heart racing and her eyes glued to him. In college, she chose sculpture as her major, solely to bring the image of her ideal man to life through her art. Everyone assumed that someone as focused on looks as Bunny would end up dating a devastatingly handsome guy. However, when Bunny introduced her boyfriend to her best friend, the friend was stunned. Bong-soo, Bunny's boyfriend, looked like a short, stubby clown. Neither his physique nor his face had anything remarkable about it. Her best friend couldn't understand Bunny's taste in men, but Bunny was completely smitten with Bong-soo's sweet gestures. He showered her with drinks, plastered love notes everywhere, and even got down on one knee to confess his love in the middle of class. From then on, Bong-soo made every effort to appear in front of Bunny. His classroom proposal evolved into public proposals all over campus, complete with friends holding up encouraging signs. His persistent courtship eventually touched Bunny's heart. For the first time, this looks-obsessed girl felt that feelings were what truly mattered. Besides, she reasoned, she was average herself, and handsome guys probably wouldn't be interested in her. One day, Bunny arrived at school to find a gift from Bong-soo. He was about to fasten a heart-shaped pearl necklace around her neck when a skateboarder bumped into him, sending the necklace tumbling to the ground. Bunny pulled Bong-soo back as he started ranting about the skateboarder. She tried to change the subject, telling him how much she loved the necklace. After class, Bunny called Bong-soo. He was sitting in the broadcasting room reading comics and intentionally ignored her call. Bunny assumed he was busy. Moments later, Bong-soo's voice boomed from the radio. He bragged to his friends about his upcoming trip with Bunny and how much effort he'd put into catching her. From the beginning, his only goal had been to sleep with her. He thought it would be easy, but Bunny kept playing hard to get. This time, he planned to get her drunk and make his move. The entire school heard the broadcast. Bunny imagined Bong-soo's smug face as he made a fool of her in front of everyone. Furious, she ran to the broadcasting room. Just then, Bong-soo's roommate came looking for him. Bong-soo realized his phone had accidentally connected to the radio, broadcasting his private conversation live. He rushed out and knelt before Bunny, lying that he was just bragging to his friends. Bunny, seeing through his facade, kicked him and called him a jerk. Feeling humiliated by the whispers and stares of the surrounding students, Bong-soo dropped the act. He lashed out, accusing Bunny of wanting to sleep with him while pretending to be virtuous, and complaining about how much he had to lower himself to be with her. Bunny had enough. She clenched her fists, took a step back, and punched Bong-soo, sending him flying. She warned him that his ugly face better never appear in front of her again. After venting her anger, Bunny ripped off the pearl necklace and stormed away. Unbeknownst to her, two handsome guys in the crowd were impressed by her actions. One was Jae-won, a senior in the sculpture department, and the other was Yeol, a design student. They comforted Bunny, and she made an important decision. From now on, she would only date handsome men. Sobering up, Bunny felt ashamed of the broadcasting incident. Everywhere she went, she became the subject of gossip. To escape, she announced she would take a leave of absence from school. Her parents recalled a similar incident a few years earlier when she wanted to transfer schools. A handsome guy had moved in next door, and she immediately abandoned the idea, spending her days trying to get close to him. This time, her mother secretly hoped another handsome guy would appear and make Bunny change her mind about leaving school. Her mother's prayers were quickly answered. As Bunny walked to school with her leave of absence form, she bumped into someone asking for directions. It was Jae-won. Returning to her studies after a break, the moment she looked up and saw Jae-won's face, the world seemed to stop. A fantasy played out in her mind. Jae-won, an ancient Greek god, deeply in love with his frail, pale girlfriend. The girlfriend turned, revealing Bunny's own face. Snapping back to reality, Bunny immediately ripped up her leave of absence form. She then led Jae-won to the library. Seeing him holding a sculpture book, she assumed he was a new student. As they parted, she enthusiastically gave him her phone number, claiming to be the sculpture department representative and offering her assistance. Leaving Jae-won, Bunny skipped down the street. Incredibly, just a few steps later, she saw another handsome man approaching. It was Yeol, the one who had witnessed her confrontation with her ex-boyfriend. Bunny froze, mesmerized by his perfect face. Another fantasy unfolded. Yeol, a sports drink commercial heartthrob, riding his bike with his high school sweetheart on the back. The girlfriend turned, and it was Bunny again. Encountering two incredibly handsome men in such quick succession, Bunny was convinced that her continued enrollment was divine intervention. Ripping up that form was the best decision she'd ever made. Not long after, Bunny ran into Yeol again. He and his roommate had just finished a design project and were casually strolling and snacking. Yeol almost stumbled as his friend fed him, and Bunny, not realizing he'd regained his balance, rushed to his rescue, pushing him from behind. However, her heroic act backfired. Yeol's tablet flew from his hand, shattering on the ground. Bunny, the culprit, agreed to compensate him. After discovering the tablet cost 2 million won, she meekly asked if she could pay in installments. Before Yeol could answer, she apologized profusely and tried to slip away. He grabbed her, demanding her phone number. Frustrated, Bunny went to the sculpture department party to unwind. Still annoyed, she saw Jae-won walk in. Hearing him introduce himself as a returning student, Bunny realized he was a senior. While showing him around, she boasted about being his senior, only to be informed by a classmate that Jae-won was the grandson of a Keeball family. Bunny felt embarrassed. After Jae-won sat down, she attentively poured him a drink. Sensing her discomfort, he casually joked with her, then mentioned he didn't drink alcohol. The atmosphere eased, and Bunny introduced herself. Hearing the name Bunny, Jae-won immediately recalled the sculptures he'd seen at the library. The one that had captivated him most was a statue of a beautiful man, and the artist's name was Bunny. Jae-won was brought back to reality by the party organizer asking the new students to give a toast. He tried to refuse, but the calls for a toast grew louder. His classmates chanted his name, leaving him no choice. He picked up his glass, unsure what to do. Seeing his predicament, Bunny stepped in and drank it for him. The party atmosphere grew increasingly lively. Bunny became so drunk her vision blurred. She hazily saw someone standing at the door looking at her. It turned out to be Yeol and his friends, also celebrating at the restaurant next door. Annoyed about his broken tablet, Yeol had stepped outside for some air. Seeing Bunny, the cause of his frustration, blithely drinking, he became furious. Noticing his anger, Bunny stumbled over to him, drunkenly cupped his face, and slurred that she had rushed to protect his handsome face. There wasn't a more handsome face in the world. She leaned closer, gazing at him adoringly. It could have been a romantic moment, but then Bunny vomited all over him. The next morning, Bunny woke up. Remembering the humiliating events of the previous night, she regretted not taking that leave of absence after all. Even more tragically, as soon as she arrived at school, she saw John storming towards her, looking for a fight. Terrified, she ran. She ran as fast as she could through the crowd. Seeing John Yeol about to catch up, she spotted Jae-won and hid behind him, pleading for help. John took a step forward, about to pull her away, when he saw a drone flying towards them. He dodged it in a panic. Jae-won also instinctively leaned to the side. Bunny, seeing the drone heading straight for her, quickly ducked. In the chaos, she tugged on Jae-won's shirt, causing them both to tumble to the ground. Bunny landed on top of John. At that very moment, the drone collided with a balloon. Countless pieces of confetti rained down, creating a strangely romantic scene around their awkward position. Bunny stared blankly at the handsome face right in front of her, lost in a daydream. After a moment, she snapped back to reality, pushed John away, and pulled Jae-won, who was standing nearby, to run with her. She took Jae-won to eat the school's specialty dishes. These were usually reserved for the teachers, but she had a good relationship with the cafeteria lady, who saved some for her. Jae-won ate with gusto, clearly enjoying the food. Since meeting Bunny, his life had become much more interesting. He found her to be a fascinating girl and wanted to get to know her better. Passing by the handsome statue Bunny had sculpted, Jae-won stood next to it, took off his jacket, and struck a pose, asking Bunny, "Do I look like the statue?" Bunny had always seen Jae-won as an aloof, otherworldly god. Seeing him act so childishly made her laugh. They were about to go for coffee when Jae-won received a phone call and had to abruptly excuse himself. Bunny glanced at his phone screen and saw the note, "First Love," mistakenly assuming Jae-won had a girlfriend. As soon as Jae-won left, Bunny received a call from John, her creditor. To avoid him, she hung up. Immediately after, John appeared behind her, demanding that she attend class with him and copy notes for him to compensate for the broken tablet. Bunny resigned herself to her fate, diligently copying notes throughout the entire class. Back home, she collapsed onto her bed, exhausted, dreading the prospect of continuing to copy notes for John. She felt utterly dejected. To pay off the $2 million debt, she considered asking her father for money, but overheard her landlord calling, demanding an increase in the rental deposit. Left with no choice, Bunny took a part-time job at a young artist's exhibition, agreeing to a payment installment plan. At the exhibition, a piece of art titled Destiny caught her eye. She was a fan of the sculptor, the artist behind the piece, and was completely captivated by it. A man approached her, pulling her from her reverie, and asked her what she thought of the piece. Bunny enthusiastically shared her interpretation. The man was pleased with her response and invited her for coffee after work. Bunny arrived at the cafe on time. Agreeing to a stranger's invitation on their first meeting made her slightly nervous. But she was a sucker for good looks. When she saw his handsome face again, all her reservations vanished. The man introduced himself as Orang. They then chatted about the sculptor, Bunny excitedly shared that the sculptor would be giving a lecture at her school and that she would definitely be attending. They had a pleasant conversation. When they parted ways, Orang asked for her phone number. Lying in bed, Bunny couldn't stop thinking about Orang's handsome features, fantasizing about him proposing to her with a giant diamond ring. She was just about to say yes in her daydream when the annoying John showed up with some people, demanding the $2 million won. Bunny jolted awake and hurriedly transferred the 200,000 won she earned the previous day to John. With 1.8 million won remaining, she vowed to pay it off quickly. The next day at school, Bunny saw Jae-won helping a girl in a wheelchair out of a car. She mistakenly assumed the girl was Jae-won's first love. Jae-won stepped away momentarily. The girl, pushing her own wheelchair, accidentally fell. Bunny immediately rushed to help her up from the muddy puddle. Jae-won returned and sincerely thanked her. Bunny then learned that the girl was Jae-won's younger sister. First love was the note he used for his sister. His sister was intensely devoted to her brother and wanted to be the most important person in Jae-won's life. After parting ways with the siblings, Bunny went to copy notes for Yeol as per his usual schedule. Seeing her covered in mud, Yeol draped his jacket over her, teasing her about being messy while his actions betrayed his concern. After school, Bunny made a quick escape, bumping into her best friend in the hall. Her friend asked her to bring back an elbow brace. Bunny had just strapped it on when Yeol appeared. Seeing this, he assumed she was injured and lamented that he wouldn't be able to make her copy notes for a while. Bunny, seizing the opportunity, pretended to be hurt. John instantly fell for the ruse. During a mural painting activity later that day, involving both the sculpture and art departments, he became a completely different person. Whether Bunny wanted to paint or fetch supplies, Yeol insisted on doing everything himself, telling her to rest. Bunny felt uncomfortable, wanting to tell Yeol she wasn't actually injured, but fearing his wrath if he discovered the deception. While hesitating, Bunny noticed Yeol wobble precariously on a chair, nearly falling. She instinctively reached out to steady him from behind. Yeol straightened up, stared at her hand, and immediately realized she was lying. Bunny resignedly accepted her painting tools and finished the work herself. After completing the task, she met up with Jae-won. She complained to him about still owing Yeol 1.8 million won, unsure when she would be able to pay it off. Jae-won was just about to offer to help her with the debt when Bunny noticed a poster on the wall. The school was hosting a strength competition with a brand new tablet as the grand prize. Excitedly, Bunny dragged Jae-won to watch the competition. Jae-won was skeptical of her strength. After all, she looked tall and slender, not particularly strong. Bunny's two best friends, however, were brimming with confidence, explaining to Jae-won that Bunny was the renowned strongwoman of the sculpture department. While other male students struggled to carry one bag of cement, Bunny could carry 3 at a time. When it was Bunny's turn, she took a step back, swung her fist, and powerfully struck the punching bag. As expected, she caused a major upset, beating all the other contestants and winning first place. Upon receiving the prize, she immediately gave it to Yeol, paying off the remaining 2 million won and freeing herself from her note-taking duties. With one problem solved, she happily left with Jae-won. Yeol watched them go, a pang of sadness in his chest. He hadn't wanted the tablet. It was just an excuse to be near Bunny. He didn't want to lose contact with her. After hesitating, he texted Bunny, thanking her for helping him with his notes. At that moment, Bunny was having dinner with Jae-won and her two friends. Seeing Yeol's message, she didn't reply. One of her friends picked up her phone, noticing two recent contacts, Yeol and a Rang. Intrigued, and noting that both were handsome, her friend's eyes lit up. Bunny described a Rang as being like an electrolyte drink. His handsome face had completely redefined her perception of beauty over the past 10 years. But since they no longer had any debt between them, she figured she wouldn't see him again. Her friend then asked about her overall impression of a Rang. Bunny felt that a Rang's presence was invigorating, like coffee that woke her up instantly. Jae-won added that inviting a girl for coffee after just meeting her seemed a bit forward. He desperately wanted to tell the three of them that he, too, was a handsome guy and could be considered a potential boyfriend candidate for Bunny. Unfortunately, the girls were still engrossed in discussing a Rang. Meanwhile, Yeol sat staring blankly at the tablet, still haven't received a reply from Bunny. He worried that he would lose contact with her. The next day, he ran into Bunny at the cafe. Bunny acted as if she didn't know him, ignoring him and walking away. Unable to stand it any longer, he chased after her, demanding to know why she hadn't replied to his text. Bunny bluntly stated that she had paid off her debt and they had no reason to see each other anymore. Yeol angrily retorted that he didn't need to see her again either, and that he felt relieved. However, during class, Yeol found himself missing Bunny. Images of her flooded his mind. Every time he tried to happily engage in class, he was pulled back to the harsh reality of her absence. Realizing he couldn't forget her, he ran out of the classroom. At the same time, Bunny was attending a sculptor's lecture with Jae-won. Thrilled to be meeting her idol, she could barely contain her excitement. As the curtain slowly rose, the sculptor appeared before the crowd. To Bunny's utter astonishment, it was a Rang. She spent the entire lecture in a daze. Afterward, a Rang strolled with her around campus, engaging her in lively conversation. Jae-won trailed behind, feeling left out. He was irked when he saw a Rang reach out and remove a stray petal from Bunny's hair. Just then, Yeol suddenly called out Bunny's name. He walked up to the three of them and said, "It seems I'll have to keep running into you." Yeol, realizing he had fallen for Bunny, rushed to tell her they were inseparable. Bunny, bewildered, didn't understand what he meant. Suddenly losing his nerve, Yeol made the excuse that she still hadn't returned the shirt he lent her. Bunny caught on and said she would return it quickly. Yeol, having run out of excuses to linger, could only watch her leave. Fortunately, the university organized an interdepartmental activity. Both Bunny and Yeol, being class presidents, had to meet to discuss the details. After finishing their work, everyone went to a celebratory dinner. During the party, they played games. Bunny and Yeol lost and were forced to perform a crossed arms drinking ritual. Reluctantly, they stood up. As they were about to drink, a passing waiter accidentally bumped into Bunny, causing her to fall against Yeol. The close proximity made Yeol's heart race. However, Bunny bumped her head against his. Both clutched their heads in pain and sat down. The drinking ritual was abandoned. After the party, Yeol waited for the bus with Bunny. Seeing a truck approaching, he quickly pulled her back, but inadvertently caused her to get splashed by a car behind them. Seeing Bunny's annoyance, Yeol was disheartened. He wanted to impress her, but his efforts always seemed to backfire. Back home, Bunny angrily recounted the unfortunate events that occurred whenever she was around him. The next day, during class, Bunny asked Jae-won to model for her drawing. Looking at the finished piece, she complimented him on his good looks, saying that even a casual sketch of him could make her a famous artist. Flattered, Jae-won jokingly expressed confidence in his appearance. As they were talking, they saw a Rang approach. A Rang had come to the university for work and decided to drop by and see Bunny. Looking at her sketch, he praised her artistic talent. Bunny seized the opportunity to invite him for an interview for the graduating class, a task assigned to her by the student council. A Rang considered it and agreed. He rarely accepted interview requests, but he didn't hesitate for Bunny. Flustered by her idol's favor, Bunny blushed. Just then, a Rang stepped closer and removed a petal from her hair. Bunny felt like she was dreaming, overjoyed. Yeol and his roommate happened to witness this scene. His roommate, mistaking the gesture for Orang patting Bunny's head, joked about the ambiguous atmosphere between them. Yeol seethed with jealousy but had no right to pull Bunny away. Bunny kept replaying Orang's smile in her mind, completely captivated by him. Jae-won noticed that Orang seemed interested in her. Bunny was ecstatic that she had successfully charmed her idol, still feeling like she was floating on a cloud. She didn't want to analyze Orang's feelings, just being near him was enough. Unbeknownst to her, Yeol, who also believed Orang was interested in her, was far from calm. He and his roommate were accepted into a young artist's creative center. Upon arrival, they were surprised to discover that their next-door neighbor was Orang. Orang proactively extended his hand to greet his new neighbors. Yeol's roommate, flustered by the attention, quickly shook Orang's hand. Yeol, however, displayed hostility towards Orang, ignoring his outstretched hand. The interview began. All three girls, including Bunny, were fixated on Orang. Being in close proximity to a famous sculptor, who was also undeniably handsome, was irresistible. Orang's gaze remained on Bunny, making no attempt to hide his affection for her, even in a crowded setting. Yeol, witnessing their exchanged glances, felt a surge of discomfort. During the break, two girls approached Orang with questions. Seeing Bunny about to follow, Yeol made the excuse that he needed her help and pulled her into his workspace. After the break, Yeol went to the next room looking for Orang and happened to see him caressing the face of one of the other two girls. They appeared to be flirting. He casually walked over and removed Jang's microphone, realizing Orang had forgotten to turn it off during the break. After the interview, Bunny thanked Orang for his help. Orang invited her to visit him alone next time. Bunny, picking up on his signal, shyly agreed. As everyone packed up to leave, the other three had prior engagements, leaving only Bunny and Yeol behind. Bunny was organizing the equipment, but her short stature prevented her from reaching a high box. Yeol stepped in to help, inadvertently pulling her into a hug. The close contact and height difference created a romantic atmosphere. Yeol stared at her, captivated. Slightly embarrassed, Bunny quickly pulled away and tried to leave, only to discover the door was locked. Yeol tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. They both took out their phones to call for help, but realized there was no signal. While waiting for someone to pass by so they could ask for assistance, Bunny told Yeol ghost stories. Yeol covered his ears, refusing to listen. Bunny, finally finding Yeol's weakness, teased him for being scared. As time ticked by, Bunny needed to use the restroom. Tugging at her clothes, she looked at him pleadingly, hoping he'd come up with a solution. Understanding her predicament, Yeol grabbed a hammer from a toolbox and broke the lock. Coming out of the restroom, Bunny saw Yeol's injured hand and carefully applied a band-aid, thanking him for his chivalrous rescue of her ancient bowels. Taking advantage of the now thawed atmosphere between them, Yeol advised, "Orang doesn't seem like a good guy. Stay away from him." Bunny ignored his advice, instead scolding him for the rudeness of talking behind someone's back. The next day, the model the sculpture department had hired fell ill. To solve the problem, Jae-won volunteered to model. Bunny immediately refused. Jae-won was also a sculpture student and couldn't neglect his studies to model. Just then, she saw Yeol walking out of the office. Bunny pulled Yeol into the classroom and asked him to be the model. Yeol, having never modeled before, was a bit awkward. Jae-won deliberately provoked him. "If you can't do it, I'll do it. I have modeling experience, after all." Goaded, Yeol unbuttoned his shirt, put his hands on his hips, and struck a handsome pose. Bunny was captivated by Yeol's attractiveness, once again feeling drawn to him, but she couldn't understand why he kept staring at her. His gaze made her feel like they were the lead characters in a love story, falling in love at first sight. Realizing her fanciful thoughts, Bunny quickly stopped herself, reminding herself that Yeol wasn't a leading man but a devil. She couldn't be bewitched by the devil's gaze. After class, Bunny gave Yeol a drink as a thank you. Before they could finish their conversation, she received a call from Orang, inviting her to his studio the next day. Remembering the image of Orang flirting with the other girls, Yeol wanted to warn Bunny against going, but she didn't want to hear him badmouth Orang. She thanked him and returned to class. That evening, Bunny excitedly shared the news of her upcoming meeting with Orang with her best friend and Jae-won. Her friend thought it was clearly a date. Jai-won, looking slightly dejected, agreed. Bunny happily went to Orang's studio. At the door, she ran into Yeol. Yeol couldn't stay calm any longer. He imagined Bunny and Orang being intimate, on the verge of a kiss. To sabotage their date, he deliberately entered Orang's studio address as the delivery location for a food order. At that moment, Orang was holding Bunny's hand, teaching her sculpting. The romantic atmosphere was shattered by the arrival of the food delivery person. Yeol took the opportunity to peek inside and assess the situation. Seeing through Yeol's scheme, Orang took Bunny to the park for their date. Yeol was on pins and needles, anxious to confirm whether Orang was a player or not. He grabbed his handheld interview microphone and played back the recording of the conversation between Orang and the other girl. Hearing something that confirmed his suspicions, Yeol clenched his fist and immediately ran to the park to find Bunny, pulling her away. Bunny struggled to break free, her face etched with confusion as she asked him why he was there. Yeol urgently told her that Orang wasn't a good guy and vehemently opposed her seeing him. In the heat of the moment, he blurted out a reminder of Bunny's past heartbreak, urging her not to repeat the same mistake and become another victim in Orang's game. Hurt by his words, Bunny warned Yeol that her love life was her own business and forbade him from interfering. Left with no other choice, Yeol intercepted Jai-won, Bunny's close friend, and played him the crucial recording. In the recording, a girl, full of hope after spending the night at Orang's place, asked him about their relationship status. Orang responded dismissively, implying that sleeping together was no big deal and vaguely promising her a label later. Realizing that Orang was stringing along multiple girls while leading Bunny on, the two friends quickly strategized. They wanted to find a way to separate Bunny and Orang without revealing Orang's true nature to minimize her pain. Jai-won hired a private investigator to look into Orang's private life. Photos quickly surfaced showing Orang being intimate with several women. Learning that Orang was exploiting his status as a sculptor to deceive college girls, Jai-won immediately informed Yeol. Both understood that while the truth might hurt Bunny, they couldn't keep it from her any longer. Jai-won hastily called Bunny and learned she was on her way to Orang's exhibition. It turned out that after arguing with Yeol the previous night, Bunny had returned to find Orang, surprised to discover he was still waiting for her. She anxiously questioned him about their relationship. Orang gave an ambiguous answer, implying he didn't casually bring people to his studio or easily date anyone. Bunny, sensing the hidden meaning in his words, felt a flicker of suspicion. The next day, Orang met Bunny near her school. As they were about to get coffee, a delivery driver sped by, nearly hitting Bunny. Orang quickly pulled her into his arms, taking the opportunity to hold her hand. Overjoyed, Bunny interpreted the hand holding as the official start of their relationship. Back at the dorm, Bunny couldn't contain her happiness and excitedly shared the news with her roommate. Knowing that the next day was the last day of Orang's exhibition, her roommate suggested she give him flowers as his girlfriend. The following day, Bunny headed to the exhibition with a bouquet. On the way, she received a call from Jai-won. She was surprised when, upon learning she was going to the exhibition, Jai-won abruptly hung up. Unbeknownst to her, Jai-won and Yeol were racing towards the exhibition on a motorcycle. At the exhibition, someone accidentally stepped on Bunny's shoe. After fixing it, she exited the restroom and glimpsed Orang's figure. Wanting to surprise him, she quietly followed him. However, her surprise quickly turned to horror. She witnessed Orang passionately kissing a girl from the student council. The bouquet fell from her hands, startling the kissing couple. At that moment, a breathless Yeol and Jai-won arrived. They tried to take Bunny away, but she demanded an explanation. She confronted Orang, angrily asking why he had deceived her and played these games. Orang callously replied that he never said he wanted to date her. She was reading too much into things. Confirming that the student council girl had also been misled, Bunny was furious. She stormed into the exhibition hall in front of reporters and guests and dumped a bucket of ice water over Orang's head. Seeing Orang about to retaliate, Jai-won stayed behind to handle the aftermath, while Yeol escorted Bunny outside. Once outside, Bunny broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Yeol silently draped his jacket over her head, allowing her to release her emotions. After she calmed down, Jai-won drove her home. Along the way, Jai-won told her jokes. Seeing her smile, Jae-won breathed a sigh of relief. Her sadness had pained him deeply. Back at the dorm, Bunny recounted the deception to her roommate. Her roommate offered both comfort and advice, pointing out that her remaining boyfriend candidates were now Yi-yeol and Jae-won. Having experienced 2 failed relationships with 2 players in a row, Bunny felt she had no ability to judge character and decided to swear off dating. Her roommate quickly intervened, arguing that she had known Yi-yeol and Jae-won long enough to know they weren't players. Bunny considered her words, thinking about how Jae-won had a younger sister and treated her with similar care. As for Yi-yeol, despite some ambiguous moments, his sharp tongue made her think he only enjoyed teasing her. Her roommate's wishful thinking soon materialized. News broke that Chin Group, Jae-won's family's company, had withdrawn its sponsorship of Orang. Photos of Orang with his numerous victims were also released. He was deemed a disgrace to the sculpting community. Separately, a heavily disguised Yi-yeol rode up to Orang on a motorcycle and pepper sprayed him, a practical act of revenge on Bunny's behalf. After their joint takedown of the player, Yi-yeol and Jae-won began to probe each other's feelings for Bunny. Neither wanted to reveal their hand first, but they secretly viewed each other as rivals. Bunny remained oblivious to their rivalry. When she ran into Yi-yeol at the student council office, she formally thanked him for preventing her from being deceived. Yi-yeol wasn't sure if Bunny was genuinely over it or just putting on a brave face, but he was pleased they were no longer at odds. One day, Bunny and Jae-won were having lunch together. Leaving the cafeteria, they saw Yi-yeol's crew filming a video. Bunny watched Yi-yeol at work, serious and professional, and couldn't help but admire him. She had never seen him so captivating. As she watched, the crowd grew dense. Fearing she might fall, Jae-won took her hand and pulled her away. Yi-yeol happened to witness this scene, and a pang of jealousy shot through him. During the crew's celebratory party, he couldn't shake the image, drowning his sorrows in alcohol. In his drunken haze, he found Bunny's number in his phone but lacked the courage to call. As he drunkenly stumbled, a roll of banner material tumbled down the stairs. Seeing the school's name printed on it, he instinctively helped to roll it up. When he stood up to face the person at the top of the stairs, he was shocked to see Bunny. He thought he was hallucinating from missing her too much. His thoughts drifted back to the past. Years ago, while looking for a classmate, he had fallen for Bunny at first sight and engineered ways to spend more time with her. After completing his military service, he deliberately applied to her university. Unfortunately, when they reconnected, Bunny already had a boyfriend. Since then, they had gradually grown closer, but he still lacked the courage to confess. Now, fueled by alcohol and jealousy, Yi-yeol could no longer hide his feelings. "Hey Bunny, why do you keep messing with my head? I think I like you." After hearing Yi-yeol's confession, Bunny imagined him on one knee, holding flowers and a ring, proposing to her. The scene shifted to her in a white wedding dress, joyfully walking towards him. But instead of a happy moment, the police appeared, arresting her for delusional thinking. Bunny pleaded not guilty, begging them to believe her, but Yi-yeol's gentle face turned cruel, mocking her for thinking she was worthy of him. Bunny jolted awake, realizing she had been daydreaming. Last night, Yi-yeol must have just been drunk and talking nonsense. His "I like you" meant nothing. Today at school, Bunny felt a bit awkward seeing Yi-yeol, but he seemed to have no memory of his confession the night before. She reminded him of his childish antics while drunk, finally bringing up the confession. Bunny expected him to use intoxication as an excuse, but to her surprise, Yi-yeol clearly stated he genuinely liked her. Flustered, Bunny couldn't help but stare at him during their meeting. She still couldn't believe he was serious, suspecting it was another one of his ways to tease her. After school, Bunny arranged to go to the library with Jae-won, but he was held back by a classmate with a question. Bunny ended up going alone. She found a seat and, to her astonishment, saw Yi-yeol turn down another student who wanted to sit next to him, waving Bunny over and saying he'd saved her a spot. Confused by his behavior, Bunny asked him directly what she'd done wrong this time. First the confession, now this plus his constant glances left her bewildered. Yi-yeol leaned in, looking at her tenderly, and told her to think about why he might be acting this way. Before Bunny could respond, the library suddenly lost power. An announcement instructed everyone to evacuate to the first floor using the emergency stairs. In the ensuing chaos, someone bumped into Bunny. Yeol quickly caught her, telling her to hold onto his sleeve as they descended. Bunny, embarrassed, gripped his sleeve tightly, and they made their way down. Wanting to spend more time with her, Yeol mentioned a good study spot and invited her to join him. Uncomfortable being alone with him, Bunny lied, saying she needed to go home and rest. Her roommates took her to a different study spot, inviting Jae-won along as well. As soon as they arrived, they ran into Yeol and his roommate. Bunny felt self-conscious under Yeol's scrutinizing gaze. Just then, Yeol's roommate arrived, laden with bags, and insisted they all go for Korean BBQ. Their study plans were scrapped. The group ended up at Yeol's studio. Yeol intimately adjusted Bunny's clothes in front of everyone. Jae-won noticed Yeol's pursuit and Bunny's discomfort. He tried to offer Bunny some meat, but Yeol beat him to it, placing the piece in front of her. Yeol was also displeased that Bunny called Jae-won Appa, a term of endearment for older brother male friend, but addressed him formally as senior. Everyone sensed the underlying tension. To change the subject, Bunny suggested getting drinks. Jae-won volunteered to go. Yeol, not to be outdone, insisted on accompanying him. At the convenience store, Yeol, jealous of Jae-won's constant presence around Bunny, questioned him about his feelings for her. Jae-won warned him to stop if he was only toying with Bunny's feelings. Yeol seriously assured him that he was genuine. After their confrontation, they returned to the studio to find smoke billowing from inside. Realizing Bunny was in danger, they both ran in. After they had left, the smoke from the grill had triggered the fire alarm. Their roommate had poured water onto the grill to cool it down, which caused the grease to create even more smoke. The sprinkler system activated, causing chaos. Yeol rushed in to find everyone in the hallway, except for Bunny, who was inside checking on the filming equipment. He anxiously pulled her out, carefully checking for injuries. Relieved she was okay, he breathed a sigh of relief. Their roommates teased Bunny, saying Yeol's eyes were full of affection and that he was clearly smitten. Bunny had also sensed his concern. Lying in bed, she replayed their words. Just then, Yeol called. He asked if she had gotten home safely. Hearing a slight cold in her voice, he told her to bundle up and rest well. Bunny recalled his attentiveness since his confession, and her heart stirred. The next day, seeing cold medicine on her desk, Bunny remembered Yeol reminding her to rest and assumed he had left it. Meanwhile, Yeol ran into his mother at school with a professor. His mother, known for her romantic escapades, changed partners frequently. He usually didn't interfere, but this time she was targeting his professor. Yeol pleaded with her to consider his feelings and not get involved with people in his life. His mother accused him of hindering her happiness. Angrily, Yeol revealed she had only kept him around to receive child support from his father, not out of love. His mother denied the accusation. They argued and parted on bad terms. Distressed, Yeol went to the art studio. He recalled their first encounter. Bunny was busy sculpting, her hair loose. He asked why she didn't tie it up. Seeing her plaster-covered hands, he gently tied it for her. The air thickened with unspoken feelings, and Bunny felt her heart race. After tying her hair, Yeol took out cold medicine, reminding her to take it on time. Bunny realized the medicine on her desk wasn't from him. Yeol guessed it was from Jae-won. He took her hand, insisting she take his medicine instead. The following day, Bunny and her two friends saw a poster announcing the return of Han Yo-reum, a successful broadcasting alumna, to host the school's anniversary celebration. They admired Yo-reum's beauty and talent, a figure they could only look up to. Only Jae-won observed the poster with a pensive look, seemingly lost in thought. The sculpture department entered midterms. The professor critiqued each student's work. Bunny, usually top-ranked, received criticism. Her work lacked passion, the professor noted, warning her that her position was at risk. Bunny was disheartened. Losing her scholarship would burden her parents. Seeing her upset, Jae-won took Bunny to the riverbank for some fresh air, comforting her that this was just a temporary setback. With his support, Bunny regained her confidence. Back home, seeing the cold medicine, she thought of Yeol. Remembering the sweet moment he tied her hair, she blushed, her heart pounding, certain she was falling for him. The next day at school, memories of Yeol flooded back as they walked and chatted. They bumped into Jae-won, who assumed they had come together. Bunny explained it was coincidental. Annoyed by her explanation, Yeol retorted that it wouldn't matter if they had. Jae-won, competitive, asked if she felt unwell after their evening by the river, reaching out to check her temperature. Yeol swiftly blocked him, preventing him from touching her. Their triangle was interrupted by the sudden appearance of Han Yo-ryum. Everyone, including Bunny, was struck by her beauty. Yo-ryum approached Yeol, asking how he was doing, then called him away. Sensing their connection wasn't ordinary, Bunny felt insecure, mocking her naivety, thinking only someone like Yo-ryum was worthy of him. Despite her efforts to hide it, Jae-won and her roommates noticed her change in demeanor. One roommate stumbled upon a photo of Yeol and Yo-ryum on the school website. They had been a couple before Yeol transferred. Hurt by their affectionate photos, Bunny spent the rest of the day distracted, accidentally cutting her hand. Jae-won, seeing her injury, offered to bandage it. Bunny gave a strained smile, dismissing it as a common occurrence in sculpting. After school, Bunny left alone, but was called back by someone hurrying after her. It turned out to be Yeol, who had seen the photo online and was worried about Bunny misunderstanding. He'd come to explain, but now that he was facing her, he didn't know where to begin. Bunny recalled the image of Yeol standing next to Han Yo-ryum, and her heart sank further. To avoid the conversation, she made an excuse about having something to do and hurried away. To cheer Bunny up, Jae-won specifically brought his younger sister along and invited Bunny to dinner. Bunny took them to try a type of bread they had never eaten before. The new experience delighted Jae-won and his sister. Every time they were with Bunny, there were always fun surprises. Jae-won's sister realized her brother liked Bunny. So, as they were parting ways, while the other two weren't paying attention, she snapped a photo of them standing together. Meanwhile, Yeol was completely unaware of this dinner. He felt down because of Bunny's coldness towards him over the past few days. He was lost in thought, trying to figure out how to get closer to Bunny. While pondering, he saw Bunny and Jae-won walking together. Before he could greet them, a basketball suddenly flew towards Bunny. Yeol quickly rushed forward and caught the ball before Jae-won could react. He warned the basketball-playing student to be careful, adding a sarcastic remark about Jae-won's slow reaction and inability to protect Bunny despite being right next to her. Jae-won, not to be outdone, retorted, not wanting to appear weak. The three of them bickered as they walked into the classroom, oblivious to the basketball player still watching them. To earn money for supplies, Bunny went to the film club to work part-time. Her roommate, who had originally promised to go with her, had a last-minute conflict. Yeol, learning of this, offered to go with Bunny in her roommate's place. Seeing the attractive pair, the director cast them as lovers. During rehearsal, Yeol took the opportunity to explain his relationship with Han Yo-ryum. He expressed his disappointment that Bunny had never asked him about it directly. Seeing Bunny pause to listen, Yeol earnestly explained that he and Han Yo-ryum were no longer involved and hoped Bunny wouldn't misunderstand. A flicker of hope rekindled in Bunny's heart, and she didn't resist when Yeol took her hand. It started pouring rain, and Yeol took off his jacket to shield her. In that moment, Bunny felt a stirring of emotion. A prop painting on set got wet in the rain. The director was worried, and Bunny volunteered to fix it. Yeol stood beside her, his gaze filled with affection. Back at the dorm, Bunny told her roommates about the ambiguous relationship between herself and Yeol. One roommate argued that Yeol and Han Yo-ryum were in the past, and even if they were in contact, they weren't lovers anymore. The other roommate thought that since they had dated in high school, there was a possibility they might rekindle their old flame. After discussing, they all agreed that if Bunny trusted Yeol, she could try exploring the relationship, but if she had doubts, she should stop while she could. Bunny was confused and tossed and turned all night, pondering her choices. She recalled Yeol's serious expression when he explained his relationship with Han Yo-ryum, and she decided to trust him. The next day, Yeol invited Bunny to have pasta with him the following day. Bunny understood this as a date invitation. After some internal struggle, she decided to trust Yeol and agreed to meet him alone. Back at the studio, Bunny shyly asked Jae-won if Yeol inviting her out to eat alone counted as a date. Seeing her anticipation for the date, Jae-won felt a pang of sadness. With their project nearing completion, Jae-won noticed some plaster dust on Bunny's nose. Seeing she hadn't noticed it, he gently reached out to brush it off for her. Just then, Yeol's voice rang out, interrupting the moment. Yeol wanted to talk to Jae-won privately, questioning whether he genuinely didn't realize Yeol's feelings for Bunny or was deliberately feigning ignorance. Jae-won explained that he and Bunny were just friends. Yeol didn't believe him, returned the wallet Jae-won had dropped earlier, and warned him against further intimate gestures with Bunny. As Jae-won drove Bunny home, he watched her happy figure after she got out of the car and opened his wallet, gazing at the photo of himself and Bunny for a long time. Yeol, remembering Jae-won's close proximity to Bunny, felt a surge of jealousy. To get Bunny's attention, he called her and arranged to meet her at 7 p.m. the next day at the subway station entrance. Before hanging up, hearing Bunny call him Appa, he rolled around on his bed in joy, anticipating their date. Bunny was also happy, thinking they were in a sweet, ambiguous stage of their relationship. However, this happiness didn't last long. The next day, she saw Han Yo-ryum and Yeol together again. Han Yo-ryum wanted to talk to Yeol privately, but he coldly refused. During class, Yeol recalled events from a few years ago. Back then, he and Han Yo-ryum were deeply in love. But on his birthday, Han Yo-ryum suggested they take a break. He hadn't understood why. Han Yo-ryum had bluntly stated that being with him made her feel bad. After regaining his composure, he wanted to salvage the relationship but learned that Han Yo-ryum had gone abroad to study, without even saying goodbye. 2 years later, Yeol saw Han Yo-ryum on TV. He thought they would never see each other again, but unexpectedly, she reappeared in his life. Snapping back to reality, Yeol prepared for his date with Bunny. However, just as he left class, Han Yo-ryum intercepted him. She wanted him to have dinner with her. Yeol couldn't hold back any longer. Han Yo-ryum was the one who initiated the breakup, the one who left without a word. He wasn't obligated to wait for her forever. Unexpectedly, Han Yo-ryum claimed she never actually broke up with him, just needed time to clear her head, implying she intended to return. Yeol refused to play word games, scolding her for being as capricious as ever and begging her to leave him alone. Bunny was completely oblivious to the complicated history between them. Excitedly waiting, she happily waved when she saw Yeol, but moments later, she saw Han Yo-ryum chasing after him. Han Yo-ryum interpreted his anger as lingering feelings and a sign of unwillingness to let go, prompting her to pursue him for confirmation. Heartbroken, she refused to hear any explanation and angrily left. Back home, Bunny stared at the clothes on her bed, resenting the date she had meticulously prepared for, which had turned into a joke. Yeol was also upset. Upon returning home, he received a text from Han Yo-ryum. She declared that even if he kissed another girl in front of her, her feelings wouldn't change. The next day, Bunny and Yeol ran into each other at school. Longing for a clear answer, she proactively asked him what the kiss meant and if they were now officially dating. Seeing Yeol's hesitation, Bunny felt completely disappointed, further convinced that he was merely using her. Angrily, she accused him of being a jerk, just like her ex-boyfriend. Back in the art room, Bunny confided in Jae-won about the disastrous date, frankly admitting she would have been better off having dinner with him. It turned out that Jae-won had driven Bunny to the date location the previous night. When he didn't receive a reply to his messages, Jae-won subtly invited her to dinner. But Bunny, eagerly anticipating Yeol's arrival, happily got out of the car. After she left, Jae-won discovered her lipstick in his car. When he chased after her to return it, he coincidentally witnessed Yeol kissing Bunny. He assumed he would soon receive news of their official relationship, only to encounter a rather unpleasant ending. Jae-won's subsiding feelings were rekindled with hope. During a student council activity that both Bunny and Yeol participated in, he enthusiastically offered everyone coffee and actively helped Bunny distribute flyers. Midway through the event, he pulled Yeol aside, reproaching him for claiming honesty with Bunny while hurting her, and warned him against hurting her again. After the activity, under the pretense of congratulating Bunny's roommate, he invited Bunny and her 2 roommates to his house for a lavish dinner. The roommates quickly realized his true intention was to comfort Bunny's wounded heart. Under their questioning, Bunny frankly admitted that she and Yeol were over. It turned out that before going to Jae-won's house, the roommates had seen Yeol distributing flyers alone and tried to encourage Bunny to stay and help, hoping to foster their relationship. But Bunny coldly refused, determined to go to Jae-won's. Hearing Bunny's reasons for distancing herself from Yeol, her roommates were indignant on her behalf. They believed that giving up on Yeol, who was still entangled with his ex-girlfriend, was the right decision. After a few drinks, the roommates were slightly tipsy, leaving Bunny sober to chat with Jae-won. Concerned about her getting cold, Jae-won thoughtfully draped a thin blanket over her. Bunny remarked on how handsome and gentle he was, jokingly adding that if any other girl received such treatment, she would surely misunderstand his intentions. Sensing a somewhat ambiguous concern in Jae-won's words, Bunny felt a little awkward and stood up, changing the subject by praising the beautiful night view. She didn't notice Jae-won's gaze following her, nor did she hear him softly say that she was the beautiful one. As they chatted harmoniously, they were unaware that Yeol was in a terrible mood, spending the night drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Once sober, Bunny's disappointed expression replayed in his mind, causing a pang of guilt in his heart. The student council continued preparations for the school anniversary celebrations. A female student chatted with Bunny, mentioning that the most anticipated event was the public confession segment. Bunny remarked that any girl receiving a public confession would be incredibly happy, as it meant her partner loved her enough to declare it to the world. Yeol, cutting out confession slogans, overheard their conversation. His eyes lingered on the phrase, "I want to spend Christmas with you," before he drifted into thought. Finally, the preparations were complete. Bunny left the student council office first, only to be shocked to see Yeol's mother being grabbed by the hair and berated as a homewrecker by a professor's wife. She rushed to intervene, urging them to calm down and talk rationally. The professor's wife yelled to the gathering crowd that Yeol's mother was seducing her husband. Yeol's mother retorted that the professor had deceived her and she was the victim. Just then, Yeol rushed forward, shielding his mother. He bowed apologetically to the professor's wife, then quickly pulled his mother away from the crowd. Once away, he angrily criticized his mother for embarrassing him. His mother tearfully insisted the professor had pretended to be single and had tricked her. She was heartbroken that he wasn't defending her, but instead siding with the professor's wife. She argued that there was nothing wrong with her being sincere. The fault lay with the professor who played with her feelings. His mother's words struck a chord with Yeol. Perhaps, in Bunny's eyes, he was also someone who toyed with affections and then refused to take responsibility, an indecisive jerk. He couldn't bring himself to criticize his mother further and simply turned and walked away silently. That night, he wallowed in misery alone. His mother's situation and the pain he'd caused Bunny left him deeply disappointed in himself. But he didn't expect Bunny to suddenly appear before him. Remembering the public altercation between his mother and the professor's wife, Bunny sympathized with Yeol enduring the judging stares. After a moment of thought, she took him to her secret place, wanting to comfort him. Seizing the opportunity, Yeol apologized, explaining that the kiss on their date was merely a confused attempt to keep her from leaving, not a deliberate act of manipulation. Looking at Yeol's sincere expression, Bunny decided to believe him. Before she could offer forgiveness, however, security guards arrived, asking them to leave. Returning home, Bunny found her father organizing her mother's interview materials while her mother browsed a magazine. Seeing a handsome man in the magazine, her father jealously commented that he was her mother's ex-boyfriend. They had once been a famous celebrity couple. Back then, everyone thought her father was no match for her mother's ex. But he never gave up because he believed love belonged to those brave enough to pursue it. Her father's words sparked hope in Bunny. Perhaps what she and Yeol needed was this same courageous persistence. Bunny decided to give Yeol another chance. Just then, Yeol's roommate, who had sensed the trouble between them, became an unlikely ally. He lied, saying Yeol had a fever and he was too busy to care for him, asking Bunny to bring porridge and a laptop to Yeol's house. When a nervous Bunny rang the doorbell, she was surprised to find Han Yo-ryeom opening the door. Acting like the lady of the house, Han Yo-ryeom said Yeol was resting and offered to take the items. Unwilling to give up, Bunny insisted Han Yo-ryeom tell Yeol she had come. Yeol was completely unaware. Waking up to find Han Yo-ryeom in his apartment, he bolted upright, demanding she keep her distance and stop appearing uninvited. But in Han Yo-ryeom's eyes, Yeol's unchanged door code signified lingering feelings. Yeol didn't bother explaining. Noticing the porridge and laptop on the table, he asked if someone had come by. Hanyo Riem concealed Bunny's visit, vaguely mentioning that some friends had stopped by. The next day, the school festival officially began. Jae-won's younger sister wanted him to accompany her to an exhibition, but he firmly refused, stating he had promised to spend the day with Bunny. Ignoring his sister's pouting, he hurried to find Bunny amidst the bustling crowd. Yeol, busy taking photos, occasionally glanced at Bunny and Jae-won standing together. Bunny's gaze also drifted towards him. Hanyo Riem, acting as the MC, noticed the subtle tension and deliberately asked Yeol to adjust her headset. Seeing their intimate gesture, Bunny felt a pang of discomfort. Jae-won, noticing her downcast mood, leaned down and asked if she was alright. This scene, too, caught Yeol's eye, fueling his jealousy. All four were caught in a complicated dynamic, unaware of its full extent. The basketball player from before was also present at the festival. The event reached the highly anticipated confession segment. Hanyo Riem picked a confession from the tree, successfully uniting a secretly admiring couple. She picked a second confession, discovering it was for Bunny. With a momentary look of surprise, she gritted her teeth and invited Bunny on stage, reading the confession aloud. "Bunny, I want to spend Christmas with you." Amidst the cheering crowd, Bunny walked on stage, her eyes instinctively searching, hopeful that the confessor was him. However, when Hanyo Riem called for the confessor to come forward, Yeol remained motionless. Seeing no one approach, the crowd began to murmur, suspecting a cruel prank. Bunny, left alone on stage, felt both embarrassed and confused. Just then, Jae-won slowly emerged from the crowd and walked onto the stage, standing firmly beside her. Hanyo Riem, following the program, asked Jae-won and Bunny to gaze at each other for 10 seconds. Jae-won looked at Bunny tenderly, and she returned his gaze, but without any flicker of romantic interest. After the event, Bunny asked Jae-won why he went on stage. He frankly admitted he had written the confession. While helping Bunny clean up, Jae-won stored the collected confessions. At that moment, Yeol arrived, demanding to know why Jae-won had gone on stage. That confession clearly wasn't his. Jae-won, no longer patient, reproached Yeol for struggling to write a confession and then lacking the courage to stand before Bunny. It proved the extent of his feelings. Yeol, sensing the sarcasm, reminded Jae-won that as Bunny's brother, his actions were crossing a line. Jae-won retorted sharply, "I hate your indecisiveness and hesitation. I honestly can't stand the thought of Bunny dating someone like you. So, I've decided to pursue Bunny." After cleaning up, everyone realized Yeol had left with the camera and discussed sending someone to find him. Ignoring Jae-won's attempts to stop her, Bunny volunteered to go. Yeol had mentioned wanting to talk things out with her. Curious about what he wanted to say, she didn't expect to find Hanyo Riem in Yeol's office. Before Bunny arrived, Han had brought him lunch to celebrate the successful event. Yeol, tired of the entanglement, pressed Hanyo Riem about the reason and the hardship that caused her sudden disappearance years ago, hoping to clear the air between them once and for all. Seeing Hanyo Riem hesitate, he assumed her so-called hardship was a lie. Angrily, he left Hanyo Riem in his office and stormed out. As Han was about to leave, Bunny arrived. She warned Bunny that their breakup had been due to unavoidable circumstances and that Yeol would soon return to her. Bunny didn't want Hanyo Riem to interfere with her relationship with Yeol, so she retorted that Hanyo Riem had no right to meddle in their affairs. Though outwardly defiant, Bunny was still inwardly worried about Yeol and Hanyo Riem's connection. She was unaware that Jae-won, who had decided to pursue her, had already begun to act. He proactively picked her up for school and thoughtfully helped her fasten her seatbelt. However, as soon as they arrived, they found a crowd surrounding Hanyo Riem, taking pictures and gossiping. It turned out that an article had suddenly appeared online alleging that Hanyo Riem's mother was suspected of being deeply in debt and had run away. Hanyo Riem, seeing everyone pointing their phones at her, panicked, her face paling, her breath catching, and her phone slipping from her grasp. Just as she bent to pick it up, Yeol appeared, retrieved her phone, took her hand, and ran away from the crowd. With things having reached this point, Hanyo Riem had to reveal the truth about their past breakup. Years ago, her mother had been scammed in an investment, losing not only all their money but also the money Hanyo Riem had painstakingly earned working part-time. Her mother had even urged her to borrow money from Yeol, who came from a wealthy family. Ashamed, Han Yo-ryum couldn't bring herself to tell him about their troubles. Unbeknownst to her, her mother secretly approached Yeol's mother for a loan. Furious, Han Yo-ryum rushed to return the money and apologize to Yeol's mother. After her family lost everything, she was forced to drop out of school and work elsewhere. To preserve some last shred of dignity, she lied and said she was studying abroad. Now, no longer ashamed of her past, she had returned, hoping to rekindle their relationship. Learning the truth, Yeol was heartbroken. To protect Han Yo-ryum from the reporters swarming her house, he let her stay at his place while he slept in his office. Meanwhile, Bunny, unaware of what had transpired, couldn't shake the image of Yeol leading Han Yo-ryum away. Coupled with a news article, she became increasingly convinced that they had their own private sorrows and would soon get back together. Lost in thought, Bunny didn't notice a cart a classmate was pushing behind her, about to hit her. Luckily, Jae-won reacted swiftly, shielding her. Looking at Jae-won's face, Bunny recalled the moment they shared on stage and when he gently fastened her seatbelt. But even such a handsome and warm Jae-won didn't make her heart flutter. She thanked him for saving her. Jae-won seized the opportunity to invite her to dinner at the end of the week. At the same time, at Han Yo-ryum's request, Yeol went to their old classroom. Years ago, after receiving their acceptance letters, they had secretly visited the university classroom to see where they would study. Han Yo-ryum had cheerfully written on the desk, "Yeol likes Han Yo-ryum, hoping their love would always be sweet and passionate." Yeol snapped back to reality. The memory was beautiful, but sadly, they couldn't go back. Leaving the classroom, they bumped into Bunny and Jae-won coming out of the art room. Yeol and Bunny exchanged glances, their eyes filled with unspoken emotions. Han Yo-ryum, sensing the tension, possessively grabbed Yeol's arm in front of Bunny, declaring their relationship. Seeing Bunny's sadness, Jae-won led her away. At the weekend, Jae-won and Bunny went out for dinner. Bunny's cheerful demeanor while shopping delighted Jae-won. Suddenly, heavy rain poured down. Jae-won went to buy an umbrella, telling Bunny to wait. Standing by the window watching the rain, Bunny couldn't help but remember running in the rain with Yeol. She didn't know that at that very moment, Yeol was also watching the rain and thinking of her. Elsewhere, Yeol was dragged along shopping by Han Yo-ryum. Unable to share her joy, his thoughts remained fixed on Bunny. When Jae-won brought Bunny to the restaurant, they coincidentally ran into Yeol and Han Yo-ryum at the entrance. The four stared at each other, the atmosphere thick with awkwardness. Just then, a clueless waiter, informing them that all other tables were taken, suggested they share a table. As Jae-won and Bunny sat down, Han Yo-ryum, trying to push them together, asked if they were officially dating after Jae-won's confession, praising them as a perfect match. Flustered, Bunny spilled water on herself and rushed to the restroom to clean up. Equally restless, Yeol followed and waited outside. Yeol asked Bunny if she was dating Jae-won. Seeing her closeness with Jae-won made him uncomfortable. Bunny sarcastically replied that he had no right to interfere in her affairs. From now on, they shouldn't meddle in each other's lives. Back at the table, Jae-won considerately escorted Bunny away. Han Yo-ryum was displeased with Yeol's preoccupation with Bunny. Yeol couldn't hold back any longer. He seriously told Han Yo-ryum that even though their past breakup was due to her personal struggles, he couldn't go back to her now because he had fallen for Bunny. Ignoring Han Yo-ryum's tearful apologies, he got up and chased after Bunny. Hearing his call, Bunny stopped. Jae-won held Bunny's hand, preventing her from leaving, but she resolutely pulled away and walked towards Yeol. This time, Yeol didn't hesitate. He loudly confessed his feelings. Bunny, no longer suppressing her own emotions, stood on tiptoe and kissed Yeol, responding to his confession with action. Just the day before, Bunny and Yeol had officially started dating. They walked hand in hand to school, making their relationship public. Witnessing their intimacy, Jae-won couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Bunny apologized to Jae-won and honestly confessed that she believed in Yeol's sincere feelings and hoped to take things further with him. Jae-won congratulated Bunny on getting what she wanted and told her not to worry about him. However, looking at the gift he hadn't had a chance to give her, he felt a twinge of regret. Afterward, Bunny and Yeol were immersed in their love like any other couple. They went on dates, strolled around town, and enjoyed activities together. Yeol personally cooked for Bunny, and Bunny helped him mend his relationship with his mother. Time flew by, from spring to autumn, and they celebrated their 100th day together. However, amidst the sweetness, neither of them realized a storm was quietly approaching. Bunny's ex-boyfriend had been expelled because of their previous breakup. Today, he unexpectedly appeared at school. He saw a picture of Jae-won confessing to Bunny at the festival on the forum and mistakenly believed they were dating. Learning that Jae-won was the son of a wealthy family, he felt resentful, thinking that if he was miserable, Bunny shouldn't be happy either. At that moment, Bunny and Jae-won had just finished class. Jae-won invited Bunny to dinner. A female student who had a crush on Jae-won had previously asked Bunny to create an opportunity for her to be alone with him. Bunny declined Jae-won's dinner invitation and encouraged him to go with the other girl. Jae-won didn't think much of it and went to the cafeteria with the girl. Meanwhile, Bunny was alone in the art room, busy with her final project. She wanted to strive for the highest grade to earn a scholarship. Just then, her ex-boyfriend snuck into the art room, accusing Bunny of ruining his life while she happily dated a rich kid. He even suspected that Bunny had intended to dump him for a wealthy guy from the start. Bunny hurriedly explained that she and Jae-won had no relationship, but her ex-boyfriend didn't give her a chance, angrily raising a hammer. At that critical moment, Yeol called. Bunny just managed to cry for help before the hammer came down. Looking at her shattered sculpture, Bunny angrily called her ex-boyfriend crazy, but he had lost all reason and raised the hammer again to attack her. In the nick of time, Jae-won burst in, pinning the ex-boyfriend to the table and ordering Bunny to call the police. The ex-boyfriend took the opportunity to injure Jae-won. Fortunately, the police arrived quickly and took him away. Yeol, breathless, rushed to Bunny's side, anxiously asking if she was hurt and apologizing for being late. Unrepentant, the ex-boyfriend yelled that he just wanted to talk to Bunny, and her boyfriend attacked him first. Yeol realized he had mistaken Jae-won for Bunny's boyfriend. On the way home, Yeol apologized again for not arriving sooner. Bunny didn't blame him but instead blamed herself for worrying him. With her sculpture destroyed, Bunny had to redo her final project. She worried about not having enough time and ultimately not receiving the scholarship, which would increase her parents' financial burden. Jae-won assured Bunny he'd do his best to help her. The two other girls working on their sculptures also offered their assistance. One of them pulled out her phone and was surprised to see a post about Bunny on the forum. Someone had spread the story of Jae-won heroically saving Bunny, leading many to mistakenly believe he was her boyfriend. They were envious that she had a handsome, rich, and devoted boyfriend. Worried that Yeol would misunderstand, Bunny immediately called him, telling him not to pay attention to what was online. Yeol reassured her, saying he wouldn't care about those who didn't understand the situation, as he was, after all, her official boyfriend. To assert his claim, Yeol brought late-night snacks to the art room for Bunny. Seeing Bunny and Jae-won standing close together while working on the sculpture, their roommate jokingly commented that it was no wonder there were rumors about them. Yeol pretended not to care, telling them to eat before continuing their work. However, while eating, he pointedly stated that he had bought all the food for Bunny, implying Jae-won was superfluous. Jae-won didn't take offense. Noticing Bunny's sleeve about to touch the food, he quickly reached out to shield it, reminding her to be careful. After a moment, he realized his action might have seemed inappropriate and quickly explained it was just a reflex. Sensing the strange atmosphere, Bunny excused herself to the restroom. Yeol, no longer hiding his jealousy, seriously warned Jae-won to keep his distance from Bunny. To finish her final project as soon as possible, Bunny worked tirelessly in the art room every day. Jae-won always stayed to help. One night, Bunny worked late, her phone battery died, and she didn't see Yeol's messages. Yeol waited all night for a reply, but when he couldn't reach her, he became extremely worried. He rushed to Bunny's house, relieved to find her safe and sound. Bunny's parents warmly welcomed him, not only praising his good looks, but also expressing their delight that he enjoyed their home-cooked meals. Yeol hadn't felt the warmth of family in a long time. He envied Bunny for having loving parents and insisted that she stay in contact, no matter how late it was. Another night, after working all night, Jae-won saw Bunny asleep on the sofa. He started to cover her with a blanket but stopped himself, reminding himself that she had a boyfriend. Only when he was about to leave and Bunny was still asleep did he gently drape the blanket over her, fearing she would get cold. But this scene was witnessed. Yeol, looking displeased, woke Bunny up and wanted to take her home. The next day, it was Bunny and her classmates' turn to receive feedback on their projects. Unfortunately, Bunny didn't achieve the highest score. She worried about losing the scholarship. Jae-won comforted her, encouraging her to try harder next time. Before Bunny could respond, she received a call from her mother. Hearing her mother crying and saying she was at the police station, Bunny rushed over. It turned out her father had been scammed out of 50 million won after naively investing based on an acquaintance's advice. He had intended to earn money to improve their family's financial situation. Even if Bunny didn't get the scholarship, they wouldn't have to worry about tuition fees, but now they had lost everything. Bunny returned home, filled with anxiety. Then, she received a call from Yeol. He excitedly announced that his competition entry had reached the finals and he was sure to win. Bunny congratulated him, then tried to sound casual, mentioning that her project hadn't received the highest evaluation and she needed to keep working hard. Yeol invited her to his and his roommate's celebratory party. Hiding her family troubles, she lied, saying she was tired from staying up late and wanted to rest. After hanging up, her two roommates invited her out to unwind. Both of them, along with Jae-won, already knew about her family's situation and drank with her to help ease her sorrow. Something happened on the way to the party, causing Yeol to stop. He told his roommates to go ahead, saying he would go back for Bunny. But he couldn't reach her. Just then, he received a call from his roommate, informing him that Bunny was with Jae-won and others. Yeol rushed to where Bunny was. By then, Bunny's group had finished their meal, and her two roommates, drunk, were helping each other leave. Jae-won was helping a drunken Bunny sober up by the side of the road. Seeing her swaying with fatigue, he let her rest her head on his shoulder. The scene of Bunny leaning on Jae-won's shoulder was exactly what Yeol saw upon his arrival. He immediately rushed over and embraced Bunny, his eyes filled with anger and hostility towards Jae-won. When Bunny woke up after last night's drunken stupor, images of the confrontation between Yeol and Jae-won, along with Yeol bringing her home, flashed through her mind. Bunny sought out Yeol to explain that she had been dragged out for drinks by her two roommates. After explaining, she extended her hand towards him, seeking forgiveness. However, Yeol was still angry and refused her conciliatory gesture. Bunny was deeply saddened. To avoid similar misunderstandings, she met with Jae-won, telling him that rumors about their relationship were circulating around campus. To prevent Yeol from further misunderstanding, she decided to maintain her distance from Jae-won. Meanwhile, Yeol was still sulking in his art studio. His roommate ordered takeout for him. Surprisingly, the delivery person turned out to be Bunny's father. He confided in Yeol about the family's financial difficulties and asked him to keep his delivery job a secret. Yeol agreed to keep it confidential. On Bunny's side, she received a rare opportunity. Her teacher handed her a flyer about a study abroad scholarship program. She could apply to study at a New York art school for a year with full tuition and living expenses covered. The teacher also mentioned that no one from their school had ever received this scholarship before, but she had great faith in Bunny's portfolio and would write a letter of recommendation for her. Back home, Bunny submitted her application and completed all the necessary procedures. She wanted to find Yeol to make amends, but as soon as she opened the door, she saw him standing in front of her house. Bunny's mother enthusiastically invited Yeol in for dinner and even created a private space for the young couple. Yeol asked Bunny why she had drunk so much that night. Bunny recounted the story of her father being scammed. She had intended to tell Yeol at the time, but he had just received the good news about his artwork being selected, and she didn't want to spoil his mood. After understanding the situation, Yeol sat down in front of Bunny and asked her to tell him everything in the future, no matter what, because he wanted to be the person always by her side. Bunny nodded in agreement and then told Yeol about her application to study abroad in New York for a year. Since she had just applied and the results were not yet out, Yeol didn't show much emotion. Afterwards, they looked through Bunny's childhood photo album together. A picture of Bunny with a young boy caught Yeol's attention. Next to the photo was the inscription, "Bunny and Hun love each other." Yeol pressed Bunny about whether Hun was her first love. Bunny hesitantly explained that Hun was just a neighbor, while trying to hide the photo album, not wanting Yeol to scrutinize it. They tussled over the album, inadvertently drawing closer to each other. At that very moment, Bunny's father suddenly opened the door. They quickly separated. Bunny's father called them out to see the snowfall. The four of them stood at the door, watching the snowfall, being together with loving parents and loved ones. At this moment, Bunny felt incredibly happy. After a stressful interview, Bunny was accepted into the scholarship program. Her parents were so overjoyed they were speechless, immensely proud of their talented daughter. Throughout this time, Bunny had been diligently keeping her distance from Jae-won, so he was completely unaware of her impending departure to study in the US. While feeling down, Jae-won unexpectedly received a phone call from his younger sister. She expressed her desire to go to the US to familiarize herself with life there before starting college and asked Jae-won to take a year off to accompany her. Jae-won looked at the gift he hadn't yet given to Bunny and remembered her words about keeping their distance, feeling disheartened. He agreed to his sister's request. At the same time, Bunny invited Yeol out for a celebratory dinner for her scholarship success. Just as they sat down, Yeol received a text message from Bunny's father. It turned out he was at the same restaurant to pick up a delivery order and asked Yeol to distract his daughter. Yeol deliberately sat close to Bunny, afraid she would discover something. However, when she turned around, Bunny still caught sight of the delivery person's back, feeling it strongly resembled her father. To conceal the truth, Yeol said he had seen the delivery person's face and insisted it wasn't Bunny's father. Bunny believed him, dismissing any further thoughts. After the meal, Yeol suddenly received a phone call from the hospital, informing him that Bunny's father had been in a traffic accident and was in critical condition. They both rushed to the hospital and saw Bunny's father still in his delivery uniform. Bunny instantly realized the delivery person she had seen earlier was her father. The nurse informed them that he had fractured his right arm and leg, requiring immediate surgery. However, the hospital's surgical schedule was full, and while they were contacting other hospitals, the situation wasn't promising. Seeing Bunny and her mother's distress, Yeol contacted Jae-won, as the hospital belonged to Jae-won's family's corporation. Jae-won managed to find a professor who was on leave to personally perform the surgery on Bunny's father. The surgery was successful, and Bunny and her mother repeatedly thanked Jae-won. Yeol also expressed his gratitude. Jae-won, in turn, thanked Yeol for contacting him. Bunny was surprised to learn that Yeol, not her, was the one the hospital contacted when her father had the accident. At this point, Yeol confessed that he knew about Bunny's father's delivery job and had promised to keep it a secret. He felt guilty for not being able to do more to help. Bunny held his hand comfortingly, saying that his presence and support meant the most to her. The day Bunny's father was discharged coincided with Christmas Eve. The family invited Yeol to come early to help decorate and enjoy dinner together. While shopping, Bunny's mother ran into Jae-won lingering in front of their house. She asked him if he was there to see Bunny. Jae-won lied, saying he was just passing by, and quickly left. Bunny's mother recounted the encounter to her daughter. Bunny guessed Jae-won had come to see her, excused herself to Yeol, and hurried out to call Jae-won back, asking if he had something to tell her. Jae-won explained he was going to New York with his sister and had come to say goodbye. Jae-won hesitated, unable to give Bunny the gift he was holding. Bunny also didn't mention her own upcoming trip to New York. Back in her room, Bunny honestly told Yeol that Jae-won was also going to New York and had come to say goodbye. Afraid of upsetting Yeol, she quickly explained that Jae-won was unaware of her own plans and promised not to contact him while in the US. Despite Bunny's repeated promises, Yeol couldn't help but feel jealous. Yusa had already caused him distress, and now knowing that both Jae-won and Bunny would be in the same city made it even harder for him to accept. Yeol pleaded with Bunny, asking her to stay for him. Bunny comforted him, promising not to see Jae-won while in America, and asked him to trust her. But Yeol couldn't shake his unease, and they parted unhappily. Bunny asked her mother how to balance between her career and the person she loved, not wanting to give up either. Her mother advised that no one can predict the future, but to always listen to her heart in the present and avoid future regrets. The next day, Bunny proactively sought out Yeol to express her perspective. She didn't want to miss this valuable opportunity and hoped for his understanding. Yeol countered by asking why she couldn't understand him, as he truly couldn't compromise on this matter. Bunny realized Yeol wanted to break up. She was prepared to wait for his answer. hoping they wouldn't part ways because of this. Christmas Eve was also the day of Bunny's departure. She texted Yeol, hoping to see him one last time before leaving. At that moment, Yeol was attending an art exhibition selection and didn't reply to the message. Bunny was seen off at the airport by her parents and 2 roommates. She looked around but didn't see him. Remembering every moment with Bunny, a fear of losing her washed over Yeol. He entrusted the exhibition setup to his roommate and rushed to the airport. But he was too late. Bunny's plane had already taken off. Yeol saw Bunny's message, telling him to take care of himself, and was filled with regret for missing the chance to see her off. Saddened, Yeol deleted Bunny's birthday reminder from his phone, tacitly acknowledging the end of their relationship. A year later, Bunny completed her studies and returned to Korea. The first thing she did was meet with her 2 roommates to reminisce. During their conversation, one of them casually mentioned Yeol. Bunny's heart sank. They hadn't been in contact for a year. Thinking about returning to school the next day, and to avoid any awkward encounters, she sincerely hoped she wouldn't run into him. Yet, fate played a cruel trick, placing them both in the same class. Yeol's roommate arrived first, spotted Bunny, and rushed out to intercept him, advising him to drop the class and choose another. Unaware of the situation, Yeol took the opportunity to slip into the classroom. The moment he saw Bunny, he froze, his gaze fixed on her. Bunny also stared back, a surge of longing washing over her. When class began, they both averted their eyes, trying to regain their composure. But throughout the session, Bunny's gaze unconsciously drifted towards his back, the person she longed for day and night. Even though their relationship was no longer what it once was, she couldn't forget her feelings. Yeol, unable to bear the suffocating feeling of being in the same space as Bunny, rushed out of the classroom as soon as class ended. Bunny emerged, her face etched with disappointment. At that moment, Jae-won, who had returned to the country a bit later, called out to her. They sat down to talk. Jae-won asked if she had seen Yeol again. Bunny recounted everything honestly. She thought that seeing him again might lead to reconciliation, but it seemed Yeol was resolute and had no intention of making amends. Unwilling to see her upset, Jae-won called their 2 other roommates. The 4 of them went shopping and played games together. Bunny lost and had to buy drinks for the other 3. As she stepped out of the convenience store, the cans in her hands suddenly tumbled to the ground. At that very moment, she ran into Yeol again. It turned out he was also hanging out with friends. Their earlier encounter had left him flustered, so he had stepped outside for some air, unexpectedly running into Bunny again. The tension made his greeting awkward. Sensing his discomfort, Bunny quickly gathered the cans, intending to leave. However, Yeol, in his nervousness, accidentally opened a can, spraying soda all over his hand. Unable to maintain his composure, he hurried back into the convenience store to discard the can. After that small incident, Bunny continued with her studies. She went to the library for her part-time job and, unexpectedly, encountered Yeol there as well. They almost bumped into each other. Yeol quickly apologized and hurried away. Bunny watched him go, disappointed by the growing distance between them, to the point where they couldn't even have a normal conversation. Just as Yeol left the library, his roommate informed him that Bunny might drop their shared class. After all, attending class with an ex could be quite awkward. After considering it, he decided to drop the class himself, hoping not to cause Bunny any further discomfort. At that moment, he saw Bunny struggling alone to hang a banner. Seeing the banner about to fall and her difficulty managing it alone, he stepped forward to help. As soon as Bunny saw him, she remembered his confession under the wine truck. The beautiful memories were still vivid, but sadly, things were different now. Yeol helped her hang the banner and gently told her he would drop the class and wouldn't appear in front of her again. He thought this would make her more comfortable, but unexpectedly, she felt a profound sense of loss. On her way home, Bunny was stopped by a flyer distributor wearing a dinosaur costume. Annoyed, she refused to take a flyer. However, the moment the person removed their headgear, she was surprised to recognize Huyo, her former neighbor and first love. She exclaimed with joy. They hadn't seen each other in 6 years, since Huyo moved away. Huyo recalled visiting Bunny's school to play basketball and seeing her then, but he hadn't said anything, instead silently befriending her on social media. Completely unaware of the reappearance of Bunny's first love, Yeol was invited to participate in a program. The other guest was Huyo. Yiyol wasn't interested in the program and didn't know Huyo, so he said he would consider it. After meeting with the program planner, Jae-won unexpectedly approached him, blaming himself for being the reason for their breakup. He had now completely let go of his feelings for Bunny, seeing her only as a younger sister. Jae-won also told Yiyol that, whether in Korea or America, Bunny only had him in her heart, and he shouldn't let her go. Just as he finished speaking, Huyo walked up and asked for directions to the sculpture department. Yiyol felt that Huyo looked familiar. It wasn't until he saw Bunny with him that he remembered seeing Huyo in Bunny's photo album Her First Love. Knowing that Hein was also a guest on the same show, Yiyol's competitive spirit flared up. He immediately agreed to participate. Bunny was completely unaware of the turmoil Huyo's presence had caused. She asked Huyo if he had intentionally come to find her. Huyo honestly replied that he was there to play basketball, had seen her around the court before, and had even attended the school festival. He confessed that he was the one who wrote the confession note inviting her to go out on Christmas. Bunny had always assumed it was Jae-won or Yiyol, never expecting it to be Huyo. Before parting ways, Huyo invited her to join him for a program filming that weekend. Bunny readily agreed. On the day of filming, under everyone's gaze, a dapper Yiyol entered the studio. He saw Huyo as a rival. Throughout the shoot, he constantly tried to outshine him and capture Bunny's attention. During the interview segment, the host asked both of them if they were currently dating. Yiyol looked towards Bunny, slowly responding that he didn't have a girlfriend. Huyo, also looking at Bunny, said that the person he liked was still his first love. At the end of the show, the planner gifted them hot air balloon ride tickets to take their loved ones. Huyo immediately offered his ticket to Bunny, inviting her to go with him the following evening. Bunny looked at Yiyol, but couldn't bring herself to refuse Huyo's earnest gaze. She ultimately agreed. Yiyol couldn't stay calm. To keep an eye on them, he invited his roommate to go along, but was refused. He then begged and pleaded with Jae-won to accompany him. Jae-won accepted a cotton candy from Yiyol, finding the idea of two men going on a hot air balloon ride together rather odd. It wasn't until he noticed Yiyol intently watching Bunny up ahead that he understood his friend's intentions. Unable to stand Yiyol's hesitation any longer, Jae-won warned him that he'd regret it for the rest of his life if he didn't act now. Seeing Bunny and Huyo about to board the hot air balloon, Yiyol finally mustered his courage, stepped forward, and pulled Bunny back, refusing to let her go up with another man. Yiyol and Huyo, centered around Bunny, began an intense romantic battle. Following her heart, Bunny gave Yiyol a chance to explain, wanting to know why he had stopped her from going on the hot air balloon ride. Yiyol honestly confessed that since Bunny's return, they hadn't had a chance to talk properly. He asked about her life in the US, apologized for not understanding her feelings before she left for her studies, and said that if he could go back in time, he would have said a proper goodbye. However, Bunny misunderstood his words. She thought Yiyol simply wanted to make up for not saying goodbye directly back then, so she angrily left to find Huyo. She poured out her disappointment to him, thinking he had come to rekindle their old flame, only to realize it was her own wishful thinking. Seeing that there was no sign of them returning, Huyo frankly admitted that the first love he mentioned on the show was Bunny, and declared that he would officially pursue her from now on. Elsewhere, a dejected Yiyol dragged Jae-won out for drinks to drown his sorrows, hating himself for always getting so flustered that he couldn't speak properly in front of Bunny. He had intended to mend things, but only made the situation worse. Both of them got completely drunk and were taken home by Yiyol's roommate. Waking up the next morning, they discovered they had slept in each other's arms all night. Embarrassed, they quickly separated. Yiyol and his roommate were about to submit their finished advertisement to a client, but suddenly realized their hard drive was missing. Yiyol racked his brain and remembered that he had carelessly left it in a taxi the previous night while searching for Bunny. The deadline was looming. The missing hard drive meant all their efforts would go down the drain. Yiyol's roommate tearfully recounted the incident to Bunny's roommate. This scene was overheard by Bunny, who was with Huyo at the time. Despite having plans with Huyo, Bunny couldn't stop worrying about Yiyol's situation. Unable to deceive her heart, she apologized to Huyo and rushed to Yiyol's side, determined to help him find the hard drive. They went to the taxi company, only to learn that the driver was on leave and had returned to his hometown. They decided to go to the driver's house. Arriving in the driver's village, they asked the owner of a convenience store for his address. At that moment, the owner stepped outside to pour water, nearly splashing Bunny. Yeol quickly shielded her, getting his back soaked. Feeling apologetic, the owner gave Yeol a shirt to change into. She informed them that the driver was taking his mother on a beach trip and hadn't returned yet. The two asked her to cook them some instant noodles. Taking this opportunity, Yeol asked Bunny why she agreed to come with him. Bunny blurted out that she was worried about him. Hearing this, Yeol could no longer contain his feelings and boldly confessed his love. He had missed her terribly for the past year. Before Bunny could respond, the owner brought good news: the driver had returned. They retrieved their hard drive and hitched a ride back to Seoul with the driver. The month-long break ended, and Jae-won was supposed to return to the US with his younger sister as planned. But she decided to go back on her own, urging her brother to stay in South Korea. For 10 years after the car accident, she had held Jae-won back. Now, she had friends and a new life. She wanted Jae-won to stop being tied down by her and to bravely pursue his own dreams. Jae-won started working at his family's corporation as an intern, determined to begin from the bottom and work his way up. Yeol, nearing graduation, had also found a direction for his career. Bunny had also met with the art director who had previously offered her a collaboration. Her career was looking up, and everyone's life was moving in a positive direction. Preparing for a date, Bunny and Yeol kissed under the cherry blossom tree at their school. Those who are meant to be together, no matter how far they stray, will eventually find their way back to each other. They never regretted falling in love.